Hello and welcome to this on-demand session from Artlogic Connect, which took place in September 2025. We're so glad you're here. This year's conference welcomed over 4,200 people from across the globe, making Connect one of the largest online gatherings in the art world, a space where our community shared ideas, explored new perspectives, and imagined what's next for the market, a positive, opportunity-filled future. Artlogic is proud to host Connect as part of our mission to support the arts community and help every corner of the art ecosystem thrive. We're delighted to share this session with you so you can revisit the insights, the conversations shaping today's art world, all at your own pace. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started.
Thank you so much, John. And I am delighted to be here and to be in conversation across the pond with the art collector Adam Lindemann, who made waves, shall we say, this summer when he announced the closure of his gallery, Venus Over Manhattan. Adam, I'm really, really glad to be with you this morning, this afternoon, because I know you're in quite a lot of demand since you announced that closure. And as we're a couple of months on, it would be great to hear what the reaction has been, what your reaction has been to the reaction, and to say you've never held back on your views on the art world or the market, so please don't do that today. But before we talk about why you closed your gallery, which I'd love to hear a bit more about, I wondered if you could just explain the thinking, the concept behind opening it in the first place in 2012.
Right. That's a great question, Melanie. That's why I'm doing this with you. It would be, you ask great questions. I've often asked myself that question. What was I thinking? At the time, I mistakenly or rightly or wrongly thought I'd collected a lot. I'd written books about collecting. I married an art dealer. And I wanted to sort of produce my own shows. And it was about creating shows that I thought would express some part of me that I felt was not being expressed. And I had two options to do it. I had the private foundation or this sort of hybrid idea of creating a gallery that would be something between a foundation and a gallery, and see if there was a space in between. And I didn't like the foundations. They came under some attack occasionally, but I don't like the idea of look what I bought.
Right.
I'm not into that. I don't like if you come to my home, I'm happy to show you things I have or whatever, but I don't like the foundation to look what I own. This is all mine. I bought all this. It's about, possession and ownership. And I like the idea that I could just invite people to participate in different ways and create a sort of Kunsthalle. And the idea that it was a gallery kind of worked because in a gallery, somebody can come and buy something. I like that idea. I like to buy things. So I thought it would be an interesting hybrid. But I would say in retrospect, at times it worked and many times it didn't work. Because like most things in the world, people are they're very stuck in their notions of what's what. A gallery is to make money. Oh, you have a gallery. How much money are you making? Well, no, I have a gallery that's losing money, but it's because I wanted to show this work. And sometimes we made and sometimes we lost it, but it was never done to make money. So I don't need to wax on too long, but I'll go back to that in a minute.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm going to ask you about the low points, but first, just tell me what were the highlights of running the gallery? What are your fondest memories?
I think the beauty is when you put something together that's never been done before, and you have some sort of pride in authorship or in the creative process of taking things and putting them together. I mean, that is a creative process, doing a show, hanging a show. I mean, my first show was based on a 19th century book called A Rebours, where I put things together as if a 19th century aristocrat were living today. And I sort of recreated the Count Duc Jean des Esseintes and what he would own if he were in the art world today. And I turned off the lights and I played music, and we had a theft of a Dali, all sorts of theater. It was a creative process. It was not a show trying to sell a David Hammons. It was not a show trying to sell a Dali. It was a show that was trying to express a book about collecting and to think about what is collecting. And I would say that the disappointment, that was super fun, but I loved it. The disappointment, Melanie, is when I came to feel often that I was talking to myself.
Can you say a bit more about that? As in
talk to yourself, right?
Yeah, as in you had these ideas, but there wasn't enough of a discussion about it. What do you mean by that?
I once hung a show of Calder in the Dark with the endorsement of the Calder Foundation, which I was very proud of, and they lent me a bunch of works, and the whole show was in the black. It was like a Duchampian, you know, and then I had spotlights on the Calders, and they were casting shadows all over the walls, and I was playing jazz, and it was like, there was a video of it on the Venus website, and I was just in ecstasy. I loved it, because here is Calder, who had passed away, you know, almost 100 years ago or so, not quite, but let's say 60, 70 years ago. And I was actually contributing something to this story by letting people see it in a different way. And I remember there was a curator of a big museum and a very significant art dealer who had sold a lot of important things. And they came into the show and they were angry. And they were just angry. They were like, you can't do this. You can't hang Calder like this. Like they feel that, you know, it has to hang behind a white wall, you know, where you can see it with like spotlights on it. Yeah. And I was playing games with the art. I was making it my own. Or when I redid Catalan, you know, I don't know if you saw the Catalan. I did like 12 étendonnets, like in the Philadelphia Museum. You look through a peephole to see the étendonnet, to see every one of these Catalans. You had to look through a peephole, and we lit them differently, and we put pigeons around, and we had a dead Kennedy, and it was like you were in a prison, and it was the antithesis of what Catalan had done at the Guggenheim retrospective, which collapsed his market. So. But which I love, because it was kind of anarchic, and, you know, when he took all the works that were meant to be seen one at a time and he just hung them all together from the ceiling, he basically trashed them. He basically turned them into like visual mess. And here I was bringing them back, but I was also Duchampianizing them by like putting each one in a room. And I loved it so much. And I would guess my disappointment, Melanie, is at times I felt I was talking to myself. Like, did anyone make these connections? Because to me, they were so obvious. Like Guggenheim retrospective, crash of the market, recontextualizing them in the language of Duchamp, étendonné. Like, we even went so crazy with the guy, Josh Shattuck, who was working with me. I went and found different doors, and I selected the door for each different room, and then the cage, and each room had a little different viewfinder. So there was a language in the door, in the viewfinder, in the lighting, and there was a question about Catalan's market. And I remember I went to one of the biggest art advisors in the market, who had been a huge Catalan fan. I think they bought the Kneeling Hitler for millions and millions of dollars.
Yes, I know.
And I was like, what do you think of the show? They were like, nothing. Like, that's not.
But do you think, I mean, you wrote in your farewell letter, you wrote that opening a gallery as a collector really does succeed in alienating both sides. And you described the market as cutthroat. I mean, do you think there was an element of that? Because you're a collector who'd opened a gallery not necessarily to make money, that people just couldn't, that they didn't like that you were straddling two worlds?
I think that's part of it. I mean, I remember George Condo called me up, and he was very nice. He gave me a call. Nice of him. You know, George is a wonderful guy. And he's like, don't sell your own collection in your gallery. I'm like, dude, how cheap do you think I am? Well, how low? That was never the idea.
Well, I'm
So-
sure plenty of people have. But yeah,
you
not seen as the done thing to be.
you push the bad. You're pushing buttons in the art world, and a lot of things that were written. I wrote the letter because I didn't want to talk to any journalist or give any interview. I wanted to tell my story the way I saw it, in a very positive and kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek way. I didn't want to speak to Judith Benamou or Katya Kazakina or anybody. It was going to be, here's my letter. This is what I have to say. And it was great to write the letter, and I really enjoyed it. But I think that, ultimately I made it positive, and I didn't want to say I'm transitioning to a private dealer, because I'm not. I tried to sort of chime a little bit that Venus was always trying to, not always, sometimes we did bad shows, and sometimes we did try to pay the rent. I'll admit I'm guilty of that. But Venus was always trying to do something a little bit different. I never sold Wade Guytons when it was the Wade Guyton moment. Yeah. And I never sold, I never hung anything that was just a layup. We did weird shows for like, that thing I did for Richard Prince's, that when he was that pseudonym artist.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, we did an entire show. We recreated Colin DeLanne's John Dog, and we created a catalog raisonné. My research guy, Zach Fishman, did an amazing catalog raisonné of an artist who never existed. It was kind of like, it was wild. And we didn't sell a thing. And it was an amazing project. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard to, but other times I had Roberta Smith as a fan. We had 40 reviews in the New York Times. So those felt really good.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you, even though you didn't talk to my esteemed colleagues. Thank you for talking to us here today. But you've hinted that some shows, you've said actually, that some shows were financially successful, some less so. I'm wondering, over 14 years, did you lose money? Did you make money? What was your net?
I would have done much better without a gallery. Let's put it.
Fair enough.
But I think running a gallery is a difficult business, having been in many businesses myself. And running a gallery that's some sort of a creative platform is even more challenging. I mean, when we picked up Peter Saul, Mary Boone had just gone to jail, which was completely unfair and completely wrong. And, Peter had been kicking around with Michael Werner, but nothing was really going on. And I lucked into my high school friend, the son of his dealer, Alan Frumkin, and I sweet-talked him into showing the entire collection of Alan Frumkin that had never been shown because he died of cancer and his wife had Alzheimer's. And so they was just sitting there. And we did this show of 60s Peter Saul. It was insane. And Roberta Smith came out and gave us a full one-page. And it was really, that was
the New York Times.
Yeah, the New York Times. And also, to cast a light on this great historic painter and to make people think about it, bring it back into the dialogue. I mean, that was great. So, actually in the end, yes, the gallery did well because the price was generous and the prices changed. And so I think the gallery did fairly well under circumstances that were deliberately challenging. I almost never hung something that I thought was a layup that someone else could do.
Yes, you wanted to provoke in all senses of the word. And do something different.
I was a little taken aback when there were other closures, right?
I was going to ask you about that because people have aligned you because it was a similar time, wasn't it, this summer that Tim Blum said he was closing, and I think yes, you don't see the two stories as the same, and I just wondered, could you tell us more about that?
I've never done anything for much longer than 10 years. 10 years is I ran a radio company for 10 years. I worked on Wall Street for about 10 years. After 10 years, I start I don't know. Some people are very good at doing a lifetime at something. They built a monument, which is amazing. I'm like a 10-year guy. So at the end of 10 years, I was kind of done. And we had great artists and an amazing team. And my first employee was Anna Fernie, and she's the director of the gallery. And she wanted to continue. So it was kind of like she wanted to continue. So I had to continue. But finally, about a year ago, I was like, I need to go back to doing something else, not this anymore. I think Tim Blum, that was a pillar of LA contemporary art world. Sorry, but Venus was never a pillar of anything. It was interesting curatorial projects and certainly helped certain artists and made people think, made people write about it. But we were not a pillar of New York's art world, far from it. Tim Blum and Jeff Poe were like pioneers. For them to buy a $6 million space in Tribeca, to split the partnership, to have been the gallery of Takashi Murakami, Yoshitomo Nara, Mark Grosjean, and close from one day to the next. That's a very different thing than Venus. I mean, I've been thinking of closing for 4 years. I almost pulled back the letter when I saw him do that, because I was like, oh, are people going to mix this together? I'm on the category of Blum and Poe. Sorry to say. And listen, of course I know Tim well, and I know Jeff, and I showed the Colescott estate at one point in time. So I've interacted with them, but maybe we all think we're so different, and maybe at some level we're all the same too. I don't know, but
I wondered maybe I could. I wondered if maybe I could broaden it out, and maybe what is similar, or certainly the story that journalists want to tell, is that maybe the market isn't so great anymore. I mean, I just wondered how you would characterize today's art market.
Well, when you're doing tough shows and the market gets tougher, it's like tough on tough. But it has been for a while. You know, the market's been bad for like 2 years, 2.5 years. I mean, we've been in this recession. This is sort of like it got a little deeper. I think that could be part of it, but I know that good paintings still sell and people are still collecting. And somehow all this bad news comes out, and yet the market still keeps grinding along. And I think there will be actually a big renaissance in the future. But
what's the renaissance? I mean, do you buy into this change of taste theory, or what sort of characterize the Renaissance?
Venus was never an operation that was made to maximize the dollar. So it wouldn't open or close based on the art market. I would say that. And I think that the Blum and Poe and the clearing bankruptcy, those each gallery has its own story. So I remember when Katya put me in the same line as Tim Blum, the shuttering of galleries, I was like, I don't think that's the same story here. I mean, like I said, Blum and Poe is a pillar of Los Angeles contemporary art scene. It's a very different thing than a collector's gallery. One writer referred to Venus, interestingly, as a provocation.
That was what struck me, actually, that you were deliberately doing tough shows. And you're not an unprovocative person, if you don't mind me using a double negative. So I can see that. But can you say a bit more about the Renaissance that's coming? What is that? Is that people will remember why art was great?
Well, I think that my generation has aged out a bit. We're now part of another part of the art world, not the art world that I came into.
I feel that too, Adam.
Years ago or 30 years ago. And I see more and more young people dressing up and going to openings and taking selfies and TikToks and Instagrams and Snapchats. And I see a lot of 20-year-olds to go into art, and too many of them actually, because there aren't really jobs for them. But anyway, it's kind of chic. The art world is, forget the prices at the high end or middle.
Yeah.
The art world is chic. And I think these people, when they get into their 30s, are going to take the art world to a whole new level, bigger than it's ever been. I'm sure that's the case. I mean, it might take a little while. I don't know if it's 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. But I definitely think the art market is coming back bigger than, when it comes back, it's going to be bigger than ever. Maybe not for the same artists.
No, I think maybe, yes, I think there is a change of taste there, but there always has been. The next generation has not always wanted what has gone before. So great, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to quote you to yourself again. You signed off your farewell letter with "Can't wait to see you at the next art fair." But you've also been historically quite critical. I think Occupy Art Basel Miami Beach was one of your 2011 letters. But what role do you see for fairs in today's market? And I'm quite interested in what you learnt, being on the other side versus being a collector, being a seller rather than a buyer. Did you like them anymore?
I'm a buy side guy. When I worked on the trading floor, I was on the buy side. I was never a seller. I was never a salesman. I was an analyst. I was a researcher. And actually, I was a special situations analyst. So I did takeovers, bankruptcies, liquidations. That was my thing. And I think in the art world, I'm also a buyer. To force yourself to be a seller is a challenge. The art fair, thank you so much for remembering Occupy Art Basel Miami. I wrote that over a bottle of whiskey on a Thanksgiving holiday to amuse myself, because everyone was asking me what parties to go to, as if no. And it was a moment where the art fair mechanism was changing the art world. And it really was happening. Everybody, a larger audience than ever, were going to art fairs that were not galleries. It was the beginning of the empty out the galleries and pile into the art fair, because the art fair is a social place. And you'd go to an art fair and you'd see all these people kissing each other and saying hi, and like 95% of them never buy a thing and don't even think about it. They think we're all like, all these galleries are just standing there for their amusement, which is of course not the case. These galleries are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars stressing out to the max about the shipping, the hotel, and if they don't sell this painting, they're not going to make the rent. It's a stressful time. And so this was a parody about the true collector who won't go to the art fair. The whole thing was a goof from the beginning. And everyone wrote about it. Jerry Saltz and Charles Saatchi wrote a response, and it was like, it blew up my Facebook page back in the day.
Well, because I think, provocative or not, it did chime with what some people were thinking and saying at the time. It was suddenly, even on the buy side, it wasn't fun anymore. It was hard work. There are only so many parties,
But we, at Venus, we started doing all the art fairs.
Okay.
Could get into. Of course, many of them are, they block you as much as they can, or if they let you in, they try to make committees make you suffer.
With like a bad location or.
But I could go deeper into that. But my team wanted to meet people. They want to make money. They want to make commissions. They want to meet clients. They want to develop. And so art fairs are critical. Art fairs are these social get-togethers that a lot of people go to who never go to a gallery. And we got incredibly lucky at Art Basel Miami. Or maybe we just picked the right thing. I mean, I literally had a guy that I've never met and never seen again from a foreign country drop 7 figures.
Wow.
And we were like, I was like, is this real?
That's amazing.
But so I think art fairs are have become one of the onerous responsibilities and financial burdens that a successful gallery has to take on.
Yeah, there isn't an alternative, is there? And you make a very good point about your staff. It may be that you were able to sort of approach it as experimental, but you have staff who really want to make it work, and if fairs helped them.
I remember Jose Mugrabi once said to me, Adam, you can't sit in an art fair. You're Adam Lindemann. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm Adam Lindemann, but I'm going to try sitting in this art fair.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was good and sometimes it was bad. But I think that the visibility of the art fair was critical. I mean, some of these galleries are just art fair galleries.
Yes.
They don't even exist.
Well,
they're not even galleries. They've never done a show. They're just hanging merch. I mean, whatever. That's part of it too. And some people are shopping. And so that's what they want to buy. Not everyone wants to see a show of like Jack Goldstein and like rethink the tragic life of Jack Goldstein, how he went from being the star of the pictures generation to killing himself. I love that story. I'm fascinated by that story. Not everyone wants to hear about the artist who died tragically.
No, and actually, what art fairs can do is level. Yes, is level that. If you're there just to get a hot dog, you can do that as well while taking some nice selfies.
Champagne.
Dog and champagne. Can I ask you a few things about you before we lose you? Which is what you said. You worked on Wall Street. You worked in radio. What got you into art?
Well, when I got out of college, my father was going to send me to work, and he didn't succeed. And my brother introduced me to a young, fun girl called Cornelia Guest, and she was best friends with Andy Warhol. And so I ran around with Andy all 84. He didn't really like me. He loved Cornelia.
Oh,
and
so
I
funny.
met Warhol and Basquiat and Keith Haring and a lot of people at that time. And I had a lot of fun.
Adam, tell me, how do you know he didn't like you?
Andy didn't like me?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't gay.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. But neither was Cornelia.
He preferred my brother.
Okay, fair enough.
But, no, he didn't dislike me, whatever. He was.
You weren't a particularly special friend.
But so I got into that. And then years later, when I was working in business, I needed some outlet. I needed to return to those fun days. And so I began to collect. And I was always very lucky with it. And I met some great people like Emmanuel Perrotin. And I got to speak a lot of French, which was fun.
You said his name beautifully.
Yes. Christophe Van de Weg invited me to the Warhol retrospective in Berlin. That got me going. And then I met a young woman at Philips called Amalia Dayan. She convinced me that I needed to get bigger into it and chase Murakami and Urs Fischer and many other artists. So, yeah.
And you said it was cheaper to marry her?
Expensive, but...
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you remember the first work you bought?
The first art book?
The first artwork.
Work.
First piece of art.
Yes. The first work I bought in a serious way was Jane Holzer took me to the Warhol estate. And I met with Vincent Fremont, and he put a bunch of Jackies up on the wall. And I thought, these are amazing. 1964, they were $65,000 each.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, 65, paintings from 64, Andy Warhol. So I wasn't a big spender. I should have bought them all. So I bought a couple of them and I hung them on the wall. And that was kind of the first contemporary art I bought. And then my friend from my school days was doing a doctorate in African art. And he got me into tribal art, African oceanic art. And so I also bought a fang from Armand, which is a kind of a very specific fetish. I went to Armand's home, and I bought this masterpiece of a fang. So those are my first two, like the fang and the Jackies, and they treated me very well. And
Yes.
and so I was very happy with them. So I tried to continue my happiness. And last night I went to the Surrealism show at the Whitney, which is a fantastic show.
Oh, that's a good top tip.
And we saw a lot of the artists that Venus had shown, and many more discoveries. And I bumped into an art advisor. She said, "It's so good you closed the gallery. Why did you ever do that? Galleries are not worth doing." I was like, "Well, I think you missed the boat if you didn't understand, why it was worth doing and how much pleasure I got to exhibit so many of these artists in this show and get to know their legacies and their estates and their family and the realities of what it was." And then later I bumped into a director at one of the galleries, and she said, she mentioned the point that, like, these people have to be appreciated. The art dealer's role is a difficult one. And it takes a lot to support these artists, to hang these artists, to exhibit these artists, to manage these expectations, to bring it out to the public. Yes, there's some money involved and everyone has to get paid and live, but there's also a real love of the art, of the project. There's a real satisfaction of bringing culture into the world.
And as you said before, it's not necessarily easy to sell. I mean, selling is not an easy thing to do on top of everything else.
Selling something that no one needs?
Yeah.
It's like the greatest thing in the world.
It's amazing, right? That's talent. And tell me, what is the picture behind you?
This is Peter Saul, one of Peter Saul's de Kooning.
What we're talking about.
I love this painting. It's called Better Than de Kooning.
Excellent.
And Peter Saul was an important part of Venus over Manhattan. I saw him last night. So we did a whole research thing on these de Koonings. They're about, I think he did 6 of them and 2 on board. But Peter Saul's Art History is a show that needs to be done. I was going to do it. I haven't gotten around to it. But he's repainted Duchamp, Dali, de Kooning. It's a great story.
Excellent. And is there anyone, tell me, before we take people's questions, is there anything you're looking forward to? It's great you mentioned the Surrealism show. Is there anything else you're looking forward to this season? And any artists you've got your eyes on?
Well, my wife has an 80s show that opens tonight in New York at Levy Gorvie Dayan, and it was just reviewed very favorably in the New York Times.
Excellent.
And many of the artists came over to visit us at home, and we had a big lunch for them, which was super.
What sort of artists? Who are the 80s? Who are the artists in the show?
Julian Schnabel and Eric Fischel and the wonderful David Sally.
Yes.
Andre Serrano was there. Ross Bleckner was there. And Mary Boone, who's an amazing woman. And I love Mary, and she really is a legend and a great lady. And who else was there? Wait, I'm going to think. I better not miss anyone.
Yes, I know you've done a very good. You've done her proud. You've done a good plug.
So I'm looking forward to that. And then what else do we have coming up? It's exciting to see the artists that I work with move to other galleries.
Okay. Yes.
Those shows. Yeah, it's exciting to see Peter Saul go to Gladstone.
Yes.
And Richard Mayhew is going to be moving soon as well, and that's exciting. And I realized, Melanie, this is just me, I needed a break. I had so much fun at the museum last night because I looked like I felt like a collector again. I felt like I was seeing things and with fresh eyes. And just, I needed a break. So I'm looking forward to looking at art again in a different way.
And are you saying never say never? There's not another gallery coming, maybe in 10 years?
I'm trying to write a memoir. Josh Bear has encouraged me for quite a while, and he's been very kind that way. So I'm trying to write something that's interesting enough to read, right?
Well, then I hope I can interview you about that after I've read it.
Thank you. I'm trying to avoid talking to myself.
Exactly. That's fascinating. I'm going to ask John if we have any. Hi, John.
Hello.
We had any
Hello.
questions. Well, we've got.
I've been smiling in the back on the backstage area, just listening to the two of you talk. So the first question we have, which is from Amit, is where does the archive of what happened at Venus live?
Good question.
That's a good question. Who asked this question?
Amit.
Okay. It's on Artlogic, of course. I mean, literally, it's all on Artlogic.
That's Amit from Artlogic. That's amazing.
Not only
Also,
that,
if you're writing a book, that
we
will be
archived like paintings that we didn't have. We did work on Peter Saul of everything from his entire career. We did work on Richard Mayhew. We have collected, Zachary Fishman collected every work we could identify in the several years that we've worked. So we have a huge amount of data on Artlogic. And that's another thing that I think galleries do that is also, those are investments in the future. And also it's done for the artist, not just to, that it's for the legacy of the artist. But it's all on Artlogic. I
can honestly say we didn't plant that question. So
sorry for the accusation.
So the next question is from Ricardo. As an artist and gallery owner myself, after events, I'm roaring with energy and all of people's energies that I've absorbed. How do you wind down after these events?
Well, did I tell you how much I liked Artlogic? I forgot that. We had great openings. I agree with that. And I don't think anyone had more fun at the openings than I did. It was such a great experience and I enjoyed it tremendously. I probably had one drink too many, but they were great. It's a lot of fun I enjoyed it. Some people don't. I think it was one of the most fun things. And also to feel that you're attracting an audience for an artist that's not necessarily about selling. We're like, well, 99% of those people won't buy a thing. Well, they probably couldn't afford it either. But there is a satisfaction to showing art for the sake of art, not just for the sake of commerce. And so it was fun to see people interact with, Brad Calhammer's work and do a talk for Brad, or we had all sorts of people walk into the shows. I don't love the gallery tours, but it's exposure, so it's okay.
And were you able to wind down? I mean, did you get home after a buzzy evening and just collapse and sleep very well, or did you need to kind of read a book before sleeping?
Let's see. I usually had an extra drink and stayed up late.
Yeah, just one more to wind it down.
Openings are fun. I love openings.
Yeah.
Now I can enjoy other people's openings.
Yeah.
Can be on the other side. So the next question we have, because we're going to wrap it up with two more questions, which is from Gustavo. I'd like to know which initiative or action you're most proud of and which maybe you're least satisfied with throughout your career.
I think the gallery did a lot of good things, and I'm proud of those things. And we helped a lot of artists. I mean, look, we could have always done more, but I think I would say that most of the people who worked with us would say good things about us, that we did something good for them. Whether it's a young artist like Seth Becker, I'm a huge fan, or whether it's the estate of Richard Mayhew. I got to work with Richard during his lifetime and visit him, and he came to see me in New York. I mean, that's amazing. That was an incredible experience, and I learned so much. I mean, I even learned from Thelma Golden. I held the memorial for Richard here at home, and Thelma spoke, and I learned a lot from Thelma in that conversation, talking about Richard. Like, I learned a lot from doing all this, so that's something that I keep. What was the rest of Ricardo's question?
Which are you maybe least satisfied with?
Oh,
as a philanthropist?
I think I'm an overly sensitive, perhaps insecure person. And when you are selling art, you are exposed to rejection. You have to be prepared to be told no, too expensive, to this, to that. I remember a guy came in once to buy a masterpiece of a Calder. This was a big hedge fund guy, made a lot of money. I knew him too. And he came in and I had this Calder, which was a masterpiece from the early 50s. And it had perforations and a few colors, and the elements were exquisite. And I wanted to sell it to, make the rent and pay the bills. And I was talking about the art. I was not talking about the fact that it had once been at auction. And he came back and started screaming at me that I didn't tell him that the work was at auction once upon a time. And I was like, first of all, I'm showing you the art. I'm not showing you the market. I'm not your financial advisor here. I'm showing a beautiful work. You can say you want it. You can say you don't. You can ask more questions. But he started just screaming at me. And I'm dealing with one of the most unpleasant people in New York City. And I think those parts I could have lived without. But I think that selling art is not always easy, because you have to deal with the people with the money. And just because they have the money doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best of people or the best of collectors.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Often the inverse, but I don't want to suggest that.
So I know we're tight on time, so I'm just going to move on to our final question, which is from Megan. What advice would you give to a young gallerist starting out today?
I think it's good to work in a bigger operation. Those people who are real grassroots, they have it in their blood. It's very, very challenging. And I guess I was never that person. I was a collector. I was privileged in that. So I don't really know what advice I would, that my advice is of any good. I think that what I've seen is those people who have succeeded have an incredible eye and are able to identify the talent. The talent is going to bring you forward. You can only sell yourself out of a hole so many times. Eventually, you're going to have a great artist. And if you look at the best, most successful of that type of gallery, they are the pickers. They succeed in their choices. They don't need to sell it. They've chosen well, and it flies off the walls. So I think that you really have to believe in your eye and that you have something to bring. You're not just going to sell pictures to cover a wall or to decorate. You need to actually identify those talents who have something to say that's meaningful.
That's
amazing.
A brilliant way to end. So I know we are tight on time, so that is where we're going to leave it. Thank you very much, Adam, for your time for this conversation, and for Melanie for guiding the conversation. If you do have time, please join us in an hour for How Does an Artist Build Legacy, moderated by Antoine Sargent. Once again, thank you so much to Adam and to Melanie for the generous time.
Melanie, thank you. You're wonderful. I look forward to reading your next article.
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and let's keep in touch.
You again. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.